Hello and welcome to the Overly Animated Podcast, where we take animation seriously. We talk everything animation here, including Rick and Morty, which we'll be getting into right now. I'm Dylan Hysen, and today I'm joined by Alex Bonilla.
Hola.
John McKenna.
Hi, everybody.
And Andy Potter.
Hey there.
Today, Alex, John, Andy, and I are here to rank our consensus top 5 favorite Rick and Morty stingers. We are in the long, potentially very long Rick and Morty off-season hiatus period. And we finally have a Rick and Morty topic discussion for you all here at the Overly Animated Rick and Morty podcast feed. If this is your first, if you only subscribe to our Rick and Morty feed, then this is our first podcast in a while. Apologies for that. The last thing you saw was in that feed was the OVAs, our awards for all of animation, and Rick and Morty took home the top 2 awards, so that was great. But reminder that we cover a bunch of shows, all of that at overlyanimated.com. You could check out our main feed for all of our stuff, see what we've been doing recently, see if any of it interests you at overlyanimated.com. Search for Overly Animated on your podcast app. That'll get you that. Might be covering Final Space coming up. That's a show that might interest Rick and Morty fans. So check all that out at overlyanimated.com and subscribe. And if you're new, subscribe on our Rick and Morty iTunes feed or YouTube to not miss any of our podcasts. We covered all of season 3 recently and season 2 several years ago. So today we're talking about top 5 stingers. This stinger is the post-credits scene. This is something that I think somewhat Rick and Morty is known for. I mean, it's in every episode except for the pilot episode. And we've gathered our consensus rankings, among, the people on here and a few others as well at Overly Animated. And we'll be counting down, top 5 stingers from all 3 seasons. So, first we'll talk about, some just how stingers function in Rick and Morty in general, and then we'll get into our rankings. If you don't remember all of these stingers, don't worry, we'll remind you, of what they are as we go through our favorites. And we found them on YouTube compilations. If you search for, like Rick and Morty stinger on YouTube, they're all right there back to back. It's very easy. So let's talk some things out about stingers to start with before we get to the rankings there. Which is, first, it's like what I said, like, is Rick and Morty known for stingers? Like, is this one of, the show's strongest traits, do we think, these post-credit scenes? John, what do you think? How iconic are stingers, in the lexicon of Rick and Morty?
As far as iconic, I'm not sure. Like, for me at least, I have this instinctive reaction. Once the credits roll, I've changed the channels, and I'm probably not alone. So a lot of people don't watch the stinger.
Yeah, I think when a lot of people first marathon Rick and Morty, they would miss these post-credit scenes. Then you realize they're there, and you have to go back and watch all the ones you missed.
Yeah, I think it's because once the credits roll, Hulu kind of cuts it off, which for me, that was the case for me, so I had to go back and watch it. But then again, I walk out of the credits in movies sometimes too, so I miss those post-credit scenes, and I know I'm supposed to stay for that. But I mean, they are very funny. They're not very, I don't think they add too much to the plot. I mean, a couple do. But they are hilarious. They are sort of the gag to end the show. I mean, they do them better than most other shows that have stingers do. So if you want to go say it's something they do better than other shows, yeah, sure. Are they iconic?
Okay, well, we'll see. We'll see if there are some iconic ones as we count down the list. Alex, does anyone do stingers better than Rick and Morty does?
Not that come to mind, but I just don't think stingers are a common thing with animated shows, at least not the ones that I watch.
How about not just animated shows, anything in general? Movies, live action shows?
Well, just in general, stingers belong to the Marvel universe. That's like the only thing I think of when you say post-credits scene. So, but aside from that, from Rick and Morty, I think it does them well, but I don't think it's a thing that you associate with Rick and Morty necessarily.
Interesting. I feel like I kind of associated with the show. So, like, the punctuation of going from credits music to the, like, ending notes of the episode. That's something that, definitely sticks in my mind. And I think that's kind of like what, makes the stinger, like, it's a specific comedy timing beat where you end the episode, you take a breath, you go to the credits music, and then you, like, have this, like, denouement or, like, punctuation mark at the end of the episode. And I think that's, like, how it functions, in a unique comedic sense. Andy, what do you think, as you're going through all these episodes, did anything stand out to you as, like, what makes a great stinger? Like what do you think made stingers go to the top of your list here?
I found it really interesting when I was going through all these stingers that the stingers that I remembered, the ones that I like when I first started watching them, when I just started watching all the stingers in a row, I'm like, the ones I remembered, and I was like, oh, I'm going to watch out for this one, and this one. Those ones were the ones that just weren't that funny. Like, the ones that just stood out to me in my memory were just the ones that pushed forward some plot. The ones that actually were, like, my favorites were just ones I completely had forgotten about. Like, they were just, like, short jokes that just land so well, even, like, years later sometimes. And it was just interesting the way that laid out for me.
Yeah, I think a lot of these function as kind of surprises. It's like, oh, wow, didn't see that coming. That's a kind of outlandish thing that happened at the end of the episode. And I think that reflects in our rankings as the ones I thought would easily be towards the top were not. And there's kind of some random ones that didn't expect to be in there. So I thought that was interesting. Alex, what about you? What made a good stinger on your list?
I definitely value humor over the meaning of the stinger, especially in a show like Rick and Morty, where for a long time it was very episodic. It was only very loosely tied together through continuity. Only up to season 3 is where we were starting to get more of a connecting tissue between the episodes. And I think that's also where the stingers begin including more of the story elements. But also, at least personally, where the stingers aren't as entertaining as the first 2 seasons, because I feel like just the stingers earlier in the show were more focused on just hitting you with the final joke that they couldn't fit into the episode. So like those stingers I prefer to the ones that are just like an added story thing but it doesn't get touched upon again in the rest of the show.
Yeah, there's definitely an evolution, I think, of these stingers throughout the show. I think something that stood out to me in the first season was that there's, I think, 2 that have like 2 scenes in them. And that like isn't something that's like when you're watching them all back together, it's hard to tell like what episode they're from, if it's the next episode or not. And that's something that definitely is not replicated after the first season. Just like switching scenes. It's like this almost could have just been stuck at the end of the episode before the credits. And I think it evolves into, this is a very specific outlandish gag or a specific, joke like based off of the contents of the episode, like a callback to something that happened. I think we start to get into it settles in more in seasons 2 and 3. John, what about you? What stood out as elements of a great stinger?
It made me laugh. Like for me, when sometimes Rick and Morty gets to be, and sometimes it can be overwhelming on the first go because you're trying to keep track. Especially since I started podcasting with you guys, it's very overwhelming to take in all at once, and you need to like take some time to decompress. But then you have that stinger, and it's like a great sort of lighthearted, funny note to end the night. So when I made my rankings, I sort of went for the humor aspect, like the ones that I would watch and get a good laugh out of. So for me, that's a good stinger. Yeah, and on a humorous note.
You guys seem to be valuing the funnies above all else with these stingers. I thought the show required a very high IQ to appreciate. That's what I've heard.
In the 22 minutes before the stinger, sure, but when you're only given 30 seconds, you don't try pressing something important there. Just give me a joke and let me leave with a smile on my face.
So you're saying you don't need a high IQ to appreciate Rick and Morty stingers, is what you're saying?
Yeah, you don't need a high IQ to appreciate Rick and Morty in 30-second chunks.
I disagree. These stingers are very intellectual, and I think that you guys do not appreciate some of these more intellectual stingers.
Stop letting copy pastas infect your mind.
Look, this is the current discourse about the show. It's what we need to talk about. But we're gonna get to the great ones. But how about any you guys hated watching back? Either hated or is like this didn't work. Andy, what do you think?
Oh, I have one that I just hate more than anything. It's the one in the Unity episode, the one where Rick almost kills himself, because you have this incredible emotional scene, and it's immediately undercut by the stinger. And
the attempted suicide is not the stinger. Then it's Rick visiting Beta 7 is the stinger of that episode, yeah.
And that stinger just pisses me off. I'm like, this episode, I would have wished they didn't have a stinger at all in that episode, because it just completely undercuts the entire emotions you're feeling at the end of that episode. I really just don't like it.
Interesting. That one wasn't on any of our lists. I don't hate that one, but yeah, I get one thing is should be noted. We just rewatched these in a compilation, so we don't have the full context of the episode. I think some of these work better if you have the context of the episode. So like that's a good point. That might have undercut that great moment at the end of the episode. John, any that you didn't care for watching back?
I think, well, I have the list with me. The one I kind of put toward the bottom was the season 1 finale. It was the season 1 finale one from Risky Business, where it's Linkler getting repeatedly inserted and exited out of giant alien boobs. Alien
orgy, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it just was like, meh. I mean, was the episode good? I mean, it was a funny enough episode. It was a funny enough episode. It was the Titanic episode, and Jerry wants to relive.
Yeah, great, very good episode. But that scene, not a highlight. Yeah,
great episode, decent season finale for sure. It didn't blow the door off like season 2's did, but that sort of end scene, it was like, yeah, nah, not really. It didn't work. It was nah. Like if that's the last thing I saw of season 1, I'd be like, whatever.
Yeah, I think season 1 they didn't really get the art of the stinger down yet. I think that's potentially reflected. Although we'll see if any season 1s made our list. Alex, ones you didn't like?
Yeah, I agree with John. The Linkler stinger was not that great. Also, the episode 6, like that one. That's one of the ones that has like 2 halves of stingers, and there's the one that's just them in their Cronenberg universe, and it's just, hey, we are Cronenberg now. We're in this Cronenberg universe. The joke is just that they keep repeating Cronenberg over and over again while surrounded by all the Cronenberg monsters. That just kind of fell flat too. But I think that's more a reflection in general of me just not being totally into the body horror that the show sometimes dabbles in, because I think that's also the Linkler stinger too. It's the entire joke is that it's just him being shot between different vaginas of different creatures, but like the idea is fine, but watching it is like, eh. So those 2 in particular stood out to me as like not.
So you're saying you had too high of an IQ to appreciate the being repeatedly inserted into all the vaginas. That's what you're saying.
No comment.
Okay, no comment on that. Yeah, I don't think the Linkler one's that great, but the 2 that always stood out in my mind is not very good are both from season 3, actually. I've ranted enough about the season 3 finale on this podcast, but the season 3 finale stinger, which is just Mr. Poopy Bulldog 2.0. On its own, pretty funny. So like watching it back, it kind of works. It's like, it's funny, but, it's just a repeat of the season 2 finale stinger. And it just is infuriating that they just did the same joke again.
But they didn't give us the time either. So you're left there like, well, when the fuck are you coming back?
Yeah, he just said a really long time. That's it. No, a year and a half, unlike last time. The other one I don't really like is the, more Pfizer workers. Not everyone agrees with this. I think someone had it somewhere on their list. From Whirly Durly Conspiracy. Yeah, I don't really like that one. But in general, I think all of them are very good. The 2 that really stood out to me, and one didn't even make our top 5. But let's go through some honorable mentions here of what just missed. So the process we did is I had everyone send me if you listen to our episode rankings one, I think we used the same system where everyone sent me their list. I gave 5 points for number 1, 4 points for 2. They ranked the top 5, and then I just compiled it into our consensus rankings here. These guys, along with Delaney and Michael, all have additions to this. So we have some ones that just missed. I'll do ones that got over 5 points, I guess. One thing I wanted to say was that we had like 6 people submit rankings, and there were 17 out of 30 represented on our top 5 lists. So there's not a lot of consensus here. Over half of these stingers were somewhere on each of our lists, and there's no one that was on all of ours, no one that was on all but 2 of ours. Like three people listing it was the max. So we really don't agree on what's the best here. Very subjective.
How many different number 1s?
I believe all but 2 of you listed the same thing as number 1. Other than that, there's all different. So
great.
2 of you 3 had the same number 1. But other than that, everyone had a different number 1. So ones that just missed here, we had me and Delaney are the only ones who appreciated the genius that is water tea at the end of Get Swifty. If you, I think all the way back to when we did our initial episode podcast on Get Swifty, that is the only good element of that episode is iced tea and everything with his letters, and they're fighting the numbers, and that stinger is so good. I think it's like the worst episode of the show. It's not a bad episode, just the worst. And but
Which
water
you are
tea,
wrong, but,
water tea is so brilliant though. So you must appreciate water tea then, Alex, if you don't think it's the worst episode.
I think it's a top half stinger. It didn't make my top 10, but I do think it's a decent stinger, and it's a nice joke seeing him go from iced tea to water
better
tea.
Crunch the numbers. That
too. The
That was
ending
good.
ending graphic, as it was an action movie.
Yes.
It's a fine stinger. No problem with that being in the discussion.
Okay, yeah.
That was my number 6.
Okay, yeah, get out of here with that. It didn't. You had to put it at number 5, or else it didn't count. This was one of our number ones that didn't even make the list. Alex's number 1 is the Jerry and Doofus Rick from Close Rick Counters of the Rick Kind. You were the only one to rank that one, and you put it at number 1. So tell us why you love that one, Alex.
Look, it's so sad. Jerry finally found something happy in his life. And you got the dramatic music, and it's like a rom-com, like climax, and dumb Rick holds up his hand in the middle of the rain, and then it's just undercut immediately by Rick just sliding in, like, who's this dipshit? So it's just like at least to me, the juxtaposition of it being just a slow, dramatic scene, and then just Rick showing up out of nowhere. It's like the perfect comedic beats to me. It gets me every time I watch that episode. So yeah, that's my favorite, but I'm very sad. Nobody even thought to even think of it.
Wow, we broke Alex already. Yeah.
I sympathize with Jerry now.
Who do you sympathize with? Who are you in that scene? Doofus Rick, Jerry, or Rick?
I'll let you guys describe me.
I mean, no one else agreed with you, so I think you're Doofus Rick in this scenario. I think that's how that works. I think that's a good stinger. I agree that's a good comedic beat. I don't know. I think there's better ones, but any other comments on that one? I thought it was fine.
Yeah, I didn't mind it.
Yeah, it's a good. It's not bad at all. So number 6, just missed my number 1, and I'm very upset with you all because to me this is absolutely far and away the number 1 stinger in Rick and Morty. I don't get it. You're gonna have to explain yourselves, holding you accountable for not including the total recall stinger, with Mr. Poopy Butthole's physical therapy.
It's not a good stinger.
Okay.
It just isn't.
Well, Andy, explain yourself.
It's okay. That was one of the stingers I remembered, Dylan. That's when I was like, oh, this is gonna be on my list before I even started watching them. And then I watched it again, and it's just like, it's just boring. It's not even like shocking or funny.
So it's very
really.
different from all the other stingers in the show. That's for sure. Yeah,
it is, and I don't know. It just didn't fit the tone of Rick and Morty for me. Like I remembered really liking it the first time I saw it.
Yeah, well, so my explanation to you would be that it works a lot better in the context of the episode. I think that you have to remember Mr. Poopy Butthole is just the stupid random character that doesn't even exist, and he's just there. And I don't know, the line of the physical therapist says he says to tell you sorry you didn't have bad memories of him. Just incredible. It ties the whole episode together. It's Rick saying he's not pressing charges. I think that's the getting shot equivalent of not mad at you. Just so good. The best episode of Rick and Morty, and it's different. It's not overtly laugh out loud funny. Andy, I think you need a high IQ to appreciate this stinger.
Maybe I do. I will say that the last line of the stinger when Rick says that's the way the news goes is a funny callback.
That's my least favorite part of it. I feel like that's just tacked on. I feel it doesn't need that.
I think here's where it's standing out, like what we're valuing here. Some of us value the humor in the stingers. You seem to value the emotional impact.
Well, I would say this is the only one that has an emotional impact, but this is the one that has the emotional impact. Like
exactly, but like
this was my number 7.
If it doesn't come with humor, then like I'm not that interested in it.
Yeah, John ranked it as his 4, so he's forgiven.
Hey, here's the thing: the humor. Actually, I still laughed when I rewatched that because I remember the context of the episode. I remember, and I thought to myself, if this is taken out of context, this is a really awful thing that Beth did. But then I remember. Again, maybe it's clouded due to recency of season 3, but it's like, nope, Beth is kind of awful. Yes, this is an awful thing she did. And I still remember being kind of actually laughing my first episode when I realized, holy shit, Mr. Poopy Butthole is real.
Yes, that's the impact. Yeah,
that it was for me. It was funny just the way that episode ended and how it carried into the sting.
It's great. The best episode, the best stinger. You guys are on.
I do want to say it's a well made one though. One detail that stood out to me I don't think I'd noticed before is that while Rick and Beth are talking to each other, Mr. Poopy Butthole is looking uncomfortably at the window, like, oh, she's there.
Yes.
So like that little detail I hadn't noticed before. I was like, okay, that's cool. That was there.
Yeah. It's not the funniest stinger, but we're not ranking the funniest stinger, guys. Come on. Okay. Anyway,
best equals funniest.
Best equals funniest.
I remember the funny thing about the episode for me, I'm like, because I was still when I first watched the stinger, I'm still trying to wrap my head around how is he real? This doesn't make any sense. And then I talked to my friend. I was like, okay, how is he real? And he said, go back to the intro. I'm like, well, okay, he's there. He's like, exactly, he's there. They're having bad memories. I'm like, wow, that was clever.
Yes, he's in the intro. It's I think the most brilliant gag of the show. Yeah. I think is Mr. Poop Butthole in that episode.
Slid in there. You didn't notice it, and it pay off until the end.
Yeah, when Beth shoots him, and then again in this, and then okay, I'll get to other ones that maybe just missed after to not spoil the top 5. But our number 5 is the Mr. Poopy Butthole post season 2 finale stinger, post Wedding Squanchers. That got in there as our collective number 5. It was number 2 on my list. I think it's the second best one. It was number 3 on Alex's list. It made Michael's list.
It was 7 on my list.
And okay, but we counted top 5, and it's this is the part 3 of the brilliant Mr. Poopy Butthole guy. 1 is okay, he's actually real. Beth shoots him. 2 is he's there at the end of the episode. We're still doing this, like it's continued. And then number 3 is he's there again, and he's meta commenting on the show. It's so brilliant because he's this fake character that's the gag is he's not real and stuff. And then here he is talking to us about the events of the season 2 finale. And he says it's going to be a year and a half or longer. He was correct. And he's talking to the pizza man. I think this is brilliant. When I think Rick and Morty stingers, I think Mr. Poopy Butthole. I think the Total Recall stinger and the Wedding Squancher stinger. Those are my top 2. Andy, you used a strong reaction, I think.
I think I'm just kind of sick of Mr. Poopy Butthole. I might just be. I understand that these 2 stingers that I didn't put on my list, Dylan, are good stingers. I think my vision is clouded by the fact that I'm kind of sick of it. The season 3 stinger and season 3 finale stinger.
It's not the season 2 stinger's fault that they brought him back for season 3. Yeah.
I know, but I think it clouded my judgment when I first ranked these, and I might have shuffled some around a little differently, but still, it's hard to capture that same feeling I had when I first saw these.
Yeah, that's true. We're talking about them in a different time. Our reactions might have been different. Alex, you had this at number 3.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed it. I think I'm with Andy in that Mr. Poopy Butthole isn't one of my favorite characters. Ugh. But just this stinger in particular is just very iconic because of the whole see you in a year and a half. And up until then, it is pretty funny, too. I especially enjoyed the element of the pizza man just being oblivious to whatever Mr. Poopy Butthole is saying. Like, oh, get off of me. So it's a strong stinger for sure, and also just at the beginning where he's like actually watching the credits with you. It's all nice. But
absolutely
Mr.
iconic, right?
Yeah, this is actually iconic. Mr. Poopy Butthole isn't the one who makes it iconic; it's the jokes that he gives.
No, it's a combination, Alex. It's a combination. This is we're way too we've reversed course too much on Mr. Poopy Butthole. He is. I think we did top minor characters. I assume he was very high on our list about a year ago. But John, thoughts on this one?
The season 2 finale stinger.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that I actually kind of liked it. It was funny. Again, it was a stinger I saw on YouTube after the episode ended because I didn't realize there was stingers. For whatever reason, season 2, I totally forgot that stingers existed. I don't know why, but it was. I actually thought it was pretty funny. I like seeing Mr. Poopy Butthole because I was like, hey, look, he's back, and him being really meta, him egging us on, and then I remember actually feeling when he said, "Oh, we'll be back in a year and a half." I'm like, oh, come on. Am I really going to have to wait that long for this shit?
Answer yes.
And,
yes, you will.
And it's like, and of course now, thinking about Rick and Morty and thinking about every other show I watch, I'm I'm now realizing, oh wow, how selfish I was to only be waiting a year and a half for something I really want to see.
Yeah, that's the new norm. This Game of Thrones, what's American Gods? This is the trends. Rick and Morty started it.
2008. They just decided to make 2018 a dark year for everything.
No shows on this year. Yeah, but yeah, I think when people think Stingers, they think that scene. So I'm glad it at least made our list. Number 4, our consensus number 4 was the Mermaid Puss, the Ricklantis mix-up stinger. This was Michael's number 1, John's number 3. It was my 5, so I'm glad this made. John, you had it highest among us. Thoughts on Mermaid Puss?
It had nothing to do with the body of the show, and that was great. I mean, the whole episode was a troll job to begin with. You start off with them going to Atlantis. It ends with them talking about Atlantis, but the middle was the Citadel, which we were all waiting for. And it was just, I think that's just the ultimate example of Dan Harmon and Justin Roiland just deciding to screw with their fans. And I loved how they actually made it about this whole, they always described their whole trip to Atlantis and made the joke about the Citadel. It's like dumb joke. It's, glad we don't have to worry about that Citadel ever again. That's totally irrelevant. I mean, it's a dumb joke, but at the same time, I absolutely loved it. And it was very funny.
Yeah, it's hard to talk about this without the context of the first scene and the middle of the episode. But it's funny on its own. You have Morty talking about how he hopes he'll get to see the mermaid again. I like that take on that trope. But it's just, and Rick commenting that nothing's ever gonna be relevant that happened at the Citadel, and of course, Evil Morty is our main antagonistic force. Maybe it's hurt by the fact that he didn't come back in season 3. But this is just such a brilliant conclusion to the episode. I think it's funny on its own. I think it's even better in context. Alex, Andy, why do you hate it?
I had it number 7, so
okay. That's high enough.
Yeah, but I think it's good on its own. It definitely needs the context to be funnier than it is on its own. But yeah, just the whole I hope I meet that mermaid again, and also just the meta line of that Citadel. I don't care what happened to the Citadel or whatever like that.
Yeah.
But it was a good enough stinger. The fact that it only happens in the garage and it also just makes it feel a little bit homey compared to just the grand scope of the episode that we just had before it.
Yeah.
So that's also a nice touch to consider here.
Yeah. Andy, do you not have a high enough IQ to like Mermaid Puss? Is that what's happening? To appreciate the Mermaid Puss?
I mean, if that's just what you're going to go to every time, Dylan, then sure.
Yeah. Well, look, we've never said that on the podcast before, so I'm getting it all out of the way in one go, guys. That's what this is.
To answer your question, though, I think this is a similar situation to the Unity episode with Rick going to talk to Beta 7 at the end. It's kind of undercut what I was feeling about the episode before it. This is a funny clip on its own, but it was preceded immediately by this really dramatic, all these people dead out floating out in space, and then we get this scene. And it doesn't undercut quite as much as Rick committing suicide, but it does feel a little out of place to me, it pushed it just off the list for me. I did like this scene on its own, but I don't think it fit as well with the rest of the episode.
Okay.
Yeah, I think comedically it works a lot better than the Unity episode, just because this is it's our Rick and Morty, the ones we know who don't care at all about the whole Evil Morty drama, so it works here. Whereas in the Unity episode, it's directly involving the same character, so that's kind of an issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's intentionally undercutting it. It's a framing device for what's happening in the middle. It's all very calculated. Yeah. I mean, your mileage may vary on whether it works that well, but definitely intentional by the show.
No, I get that it's intentional. I just don't think it succeeds for me personally. That's all.
Okay, sure. So look, are you guys satisfied we got the Mermaid Puss on there? I think that's a fan favorite, but we got
Is it?
I don't know. Are you saying Mermaid Puss is not a fan favorite of yours, Alex?
I'm just saying, I don't think when you hear Rick and Morty, I don't think there are fans who say, "Oh, the Mermaid Show."
Well, not the mermaid show,
Yeah,
and they're also never mermaids on screen. So yeah.
On the other hand, you might hear one or two people say, "Oh, that one with the Mr. Poopy Butthole."
Right. I mean, that's the number one iconic.
Or the one with the pickle Rick.
Yeah, well,
Oh, no.
okay, that's not good. We're not. I mean, we love that episode, but we don't want the show to be known for Pickle Rick.
It's also known for a McDonald's sauce.
Yeah, unfortunate. Rumors of the Szechuan sauce being a regular thing at McDonald's coming soon. I saw that recently on the subreddit. So good job, all you guys that like sold your houses for this. Smart move. Tied at number 2, we have 2 that I really did not expect to make our top 5, but tied for number 2. I'll start with the one that had was on less people's list. This was the number 1 of both John and Andy, and was on nobody else's list at all.
This is an amazing feed!
Which is the Taddy Mason stinger from Look Who's Purging Now.
What?
How did no one else like that?
Okay, Andy. Why? Why is Taddy
Because
Mason
the entire
incredible?
episode, Jerry's going around asking, is that Taddy Mason? Whenever anybody picks up the phone, and you're just going, who the fuck is Taddy Mason? The entire episode. And then the stinger comes on, and it's just framed perfectly. I just love this entire thing, where you're just like, oh, Jerry just wanted to talk to this random asshole who he was giving money to someone to talk to. That's the only person who would be friends with Jerry. Somebody had to pay. And it's like, because through the episode, you're like, is this like a hooker or something? And it's somehow worse than that. I don't know. Like, it goes lower with Jerry somehow. Like, he finds the lowest thing and gets even lower. I don't understand it.
Okay, so you like it because it's anti-Jerry. That's what.
Yes, because Jerry's a piece of shit.
Yeah, it potentially works even better in the context of the episode. I don't remember that context that well.
It happens like 3 times. People pick up the phone and he's like, it's a Taddy Mason. They're all, and like Beth and Summer are like, we don't know who that is, Dad.
It's the Purging episode.
Yeah, the Purging one. John, what do you love about this one?
Again, this is the one that I think this is actually the only one that ended with me just bursting out laughing, because first off, it's like, because I remember the episode. It was an okay episode. But it's, Beth is like, who is Taddy Mason and why did you pay $700 for him? And first off, I'm thinking, really, Jerry is actually calling this like stripper hooker line, because that's what you think. You think Taddy Mason, you're thinking of Ashley Madison, and then the ad comes on the TV. It's just like some guy you talk to, and I'm like, this is quintessential sad, pathetic Jerry, and it's like you're laughing. It's like it's not even that he's not talking to a sexy woman. He's talking to just this random guy because he has no life and no friends and is just this sad sack of shit. And it just ends with Beth just going, Jerry, get a job. I just thought that was, it's like you feel, it's like I want to feel bad for him, but at the same time, it's fun to laugh at Jerry's misery. And that might be, up to that point, that may have been his nadir, that he has to actually do that to get human compassion. That's why I had it at my number 1.
There's a recurring theme of us loving the Jerry misery in these ones. We'll see to come, but I think that's a good one. It was somewhat in contention, but maybe I just need to rewatch the episode to get the full context.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say, like, I didn't really think about context when ranking most of these. And just on its own, I think, like, the main joke is making Jerry look pathetic. But I think a couple of stingers do that better. The one that I ranked as my number 1 with Jerry and Dumb Rick. Also in season 3, you had a couple of good ones with, like, Jerry losing his unemployment check to the wolf and the wind howling loser.
Oh my god, that's so good.
And also the Jerry's mind blower is just him being totally incompetent. I think, like, there are several stingers that highlight Jerry being just a sad, pathetic sack. And this one, like, it does that, but it's too obvious, I think, at least for me, for the joke to be as funny to reach my top 5.
But it wasn't obvious because you sort of held out hope that Jerry would at least have the decency to call a hooker.
That's stated very well, John. Yeah. I'll rewatch the Purging episode. That's one I like, and gotta see the full context on Taddy Mason. I do remember that being a great gag in that episode. Okay, yeah. The other one tied for number 2. Also didn't see this coming, making our list. It is Buff, Rick, and Summer beating a bunch of people up at the end of Something Wicked Comes This Way. This was number 4 on Delaney, number 2 on Michael, number 2 on Alex. Alex, you didn't see this coming.
Yeah, I didn't expect to like this as much as I did on the rewatch, but it's just the song just goes perfectly with the scene.
X gonna
and
give
also,
it to you, yeah.
Yeah, Rick and Summer just being buff is in itself is just a funny image, and particularly in our current political climate, just seeing a neo-Nazi and a Westboro Baptist protester getting beat down is just cathartic in a sense. So like, well, it maybe on purely humor, it's not a great it's not a top 5 stinger, but like just in terms of how it made me feel hype. So that's also a good feeling to come out of it at the end of an episode. Just like, oh yeah.
Okay, I think we've determined that X gonna give it to you as your hype song. You can now go back.
It probably is for a lot of people after that episode.
Yeah, this is a good one. This was somewhat in contention for my top 5. Didn't quite get there, but I do think it's very funny on its own. And to be honest, I don't even remember why they were buff at the episode. Like, well,
they got buffed to beat up Satan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like a potion.
That's not one of my favorite episodes, but it's this
underrated episode, but
it's underrated. But would I put it in the top 5? Probably not.
The Stinger, yeah. So there you go.
Well, I meant the episode. The Stinger was
clearly top 5 now, but the episode. But the Stinger did make tied for second on our list. Yeah, I don't know. I think this is one that does jump out to you watching them all again. Like, this is different. We have the song going, and them just relevant to our current political climate. Despite it being the season 1, this is the only season 1 stinger that made it. But our number 1 stinger, from I thought it would be the post season 2. I thought that was a lock for the season 2 finale one for number 1, but no, it is the wolf eating Jerry's unemployment check. It's Rick Mancing the Stone. That's Delaney's number 1, John's number 2, Andy's number 3, and that was enough. That's it to get it to number 1. 3 people consensus. John, you had this ranked the highest. You really, I assume this relates to your Jerry being a loser speech.
Yeah, and I would just like to preface that 3 of my top 5 were just stingers of Jerry being a loser. But yeah, this one was bad. Like, as I mentioned, like to Taddy Mason, you thought that was like Jerry's lowest, but this is him actually feeding his unemployment check to a stray dog because he inferred that the dog prefers to see him suffer. I mean, it's just, you watch it, you're like, oh my god, this guy is an absolute wreck. He basically just lost a mental battle with a rabid canine. And it was, again, it's hilarious. Like, he's holding a chip. It's like, but this will give you nourishment unless my suffering is your nourishment. So he feeds the check. He spits out the check, and the wind just yells, "Loser!" Very humorous, very funny, and also, my God, that guy really needs to get back with Beth.
No, don't wish that upon Beth. Did that happen in the finale? I don't even remember.
Yeah, it did.
Is that going to count in season 4? Will that?
Wow, you've already blocked that out, Dylan.
I really don't care about the last one.
Well, of course, the question is, did he get back with real Beth, or did he get back with?
Yeah. Well, okay, that'll be that's a potential topic for later.
God.
Is a clone Beth? Andy, you had this at 3. Why do you like this one?
I mean, I think John said most of the reasons already. We talked about a lot for Taddy Mason. I think the Taddy Mason one does the making fun of Jerry a little better. But I do like this. I love the little gust of wind with Loser in the background. I think that really ties the scene together. And the part where he's just trying to explain to the dog, like, but this is actual food in my right hand. I will give you actual food. But the dog just wants the unemployment check and just chews it up and spits it out. Like, it's just a really funny scene. I don't know what else there is more to say about it.
Yeah. High IQ to like the no, JK. But I think that the Jerry saying, you want my unemployment check, but this is actual nurse. I think that might be the funniest Jerry moment in the show. Like, yeah. So that I'm fine with this being number 1 because that like line of dialogue from him is so good. It's just, it really works. That episode's very good, and I don't actually love the loser wins. I think it's too on the nose. So that shot it down a little bit for me, but this was close to making my top 5, and just the rabid dog being able to distinguish between his unemployment check is really funny. Delaney pushed this up to number 1. She said Jerry's suffering counts highly for her list. So there you go. That's what we appreciated. That's our top 5 here. What do we think? Is this a good top 5?
I believe all your opinions are too heavily biased against by your hatred for Jerry.
Alex, speaking for all the listeners of this podcast, that we've frequently gotten that feedback. So,
in my defense, Alex, my other picks were not about Jerry, but they just weren't on. Just no one else liked them.
And I'm speaking as someone who put number 1 a different Jerry Stinger. So.
It's a solid collection. Some other ones that we already went over the 3 that most just missed, but some other ones that got multiple votes were the Stacy and the Moon Tower at the end of Rest and Relaxation.
Yes. Oh yeah,
we had and the vampire one at the end of Big Trouble in Little Sanchez got multiple votes as well.
That was my number 4.
Yeah, and one I'm pissed that got nowhere near our top 5. I was the only one that appreciated Concerto at the end of Pickle Rick.
It's a good stinger, Dylan.
It's really good stinger. It has nothing to do with anything, and it brings Jaguar back. I loved it. I think this is one of the funniest ones, but no one agreed with me. Most things only got 1 vote, so there's a lot of that. And the Morty turning into a car, Andy had that ranked highly. No one else had that.
That's an amazing stinger. That's an amazing callback.
But that's one that's definitely dependent on context.
It's just a throwaway joke earlier in the episode. Yeah.
Right. So it's much funnier if you watch that in the context of the episode on its own. It's just a surreal scene. It's like, okay.
I don't think I was even crazy about that at the time, but it is funny. And Eye Hole Man, Delaney had that as her too. No one else had that ranked. So there's a lot of other good ones here. Let me look back on my list because I feel like we didn't even 2 we didn't even touch 3. Okay, here's 3 we didn't even get close on. No one voted for these 3. Phoenix Person at the end of the season 3 premiere.
That went absolutely nowhere in season.
Well, you can't not get points for it going nowhere. See, that's season 3 problems.
And the only joke is, Phoenix Person, that's a dumb name. That's the entire joke.
It's a funny joke. A lot of these are 1 joke stingers.
Yeah, but it wasn't.
I also think that one's pretty iconic. The hamsters in the butts world, they go on vacation in the first interdimensional cable episode. I thought that one's very funny. And then controversial, so I'm not surprised it made none of our lists, but King Jellybean, the statue of him. I think that is by far the strongest element of that storyline in the Meeseeks episode is they're talking about the legacy and hiding it of King Jellybean. And, I think that the stinger is when that satire is at its best. It kind of is, I don't think it worked particularly well earlier in the episode. And, but just it's the social context of them covering it up. And it was very relevant, I think, potentially at the time and still relevant. Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely a strong, I think a very different, temperature these days to watch that scene.
I think it was potentially relevant at the time with the Paterno stuff, right? But we're having it again with the gymnast. It's constant, and I thought that's really strong social satire at the end of that episode.
It definitely
just made me realize how long ago season 1 was.
Oh yeah,
wow, yeah. There was one stinger that when I watched back again, it was. I thought this was I thought it was interesting. It was the one where they do Jerry's Mind Blower. That was my number 5. One thing I noticed in that stinger, one of the tapes that was in the box was labeled Sleepy Gary, which means when I pieced that together, when I saw it, it basically realized this means that after Total Recall, Jerry was so broken up about losing Sleepy Gary, Rick had to actually remove that memory from his brain to calm him down, which is very, very funny.
Yeah.
Even though Sleepy Gary was fake, Jerry could not.
Sleeping Gary always funny. Yeah.
Jerry could not fathom living without him.
Yeah. The Jerry's Mindbenders, the E.T. I think parody. Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of people like that. Other ones none of us had or didn't. Either none of us had or didn't end up making the top 5. The Einstein, the balls, the time traveling balls discovering Einstein and causing him. I think that one's very funny.
Yeah, that one was my number 5. Keegan-Michael Key and Jordan Peele, great chemistry even in this show. So and just like the visual gag of them going.
The joke of they caused him to do the E=mc². I think that's very good. Yeah,
that too. Now that you need a high IQ to understand.
Right, Einstein. Yeah, there you go.
That was
literal Einstein.
That was was the episode that made me realize I should stay and watch the Stingers, because I saw the whole episode, then I saw the credits, and they said special guest Keegan Michael Key and Jordan Peele. I was like, wait, Jordan Peele wasn't in this one. And then I saw Stinger. Oh,
Yeah.
there he is.
There he is. Yeah. Oscar nominee Jordan Peele in Rick and Morty. There you go. The Pirates of the Pancreas conference call. I thought that's very funny.
That's the first good stinger.
Right. Yeah.
definitely.
I think that's worth noting. I think Jerry's answering machine at the end of season 3. I think that's worth noting. That's a very funny one. The Blitz and Shits commercial.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't think that's super standout, but it's Rick's like, and I am in the commercial.
Well, it sounds like the whole thing was like improv, and I really love it.
Yeah, definitely improv, and then they animated it. The My Horrible Father from Morty's son in that episode where he gets him on the talk show or whatever. I thought that's a pretty solid one. And Gearhead, no love for the Gearhead stinger.
Are you in Gear College or?
Yeah, I think that's a great line. Yeah.
An okay stinger for an okay episode.
I don't know what episode even was that. Oh, it was the Vindicators. We're not getting back into the Vindicators debate. That's
We can't do it with Alex here.
The M Night Shyamalan's post simulation sequence. I think that's funny.
That was like a really long scene though. That was like almost.
That's before they got the handle of it. There's two different parts to that one. Yeah. Have we mentioned all of them yet? We had.
I think you mentioned the call center one disparagingly earlier in this.
You like that?
Podcast.
You like that one though?
Yeah, I think that's my favorite season 3 stinger. Honestly, like just them using the work jargon. It's like, no, guys, relax, and then it just gets killed up by a bird. It's short and sweet.
The talking part is fine. It's just the hawk taking them away. It's just
I agree that particular gag is the weaker one of the two, but like it's a nice package for me, and I just enjoy it very much.
And the last one we can talk about is Scary Glenn at the end of the Scary Terror.
Yeah,
episode. It's fine. It's not very good. I love that episode, but the stinger is not the highlight.
But that's like the actual first one, right? Because the first episode.
That's the first stinger. Yeah.
There was the one where Jerry gets fired for his Apples ad after spending the whole
that's
episode realizing it was a great
that's
ad.
the post simulation one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all the same stinger.
Oh, that was? Wow.
Yeah, I think that's still that's the Jerry getting fired and then Rick threatening Morty. Yeah. I think that's kind of an iconic one, so definitely worth mentioning. Okay, there we go. We talked about all of them. What's your favorite stinger? Let us know, and how was our top 5 list? Was it terrible? I didn't expect the Jerry unemployment check to be number 1, but very funny. So that's good.
Oh wait, I think there's one we haven't mentioned in this entire episode. It was like in the post Cronenberg world where Summer is reciting Jaws in a cardboard TV as Beth and Jerry.
That's part 1 of the 2-part Cronenberg.
Oh, okay. Right, yeah.
I think the Cronenberg work is very good. One is very good. I think it's a context dependent one though.
It definitely, and it was the first time they really played with the whole parallel universes thing in the show.
Yeah,
and then the joke at the end is that
Summer reading from the Jaws script is the joke I remembered of that.
Yeah, that's part 1, and then the original Cronenberg version's coming back into the the Cronenberged up world, and then assimilating in now.
Yeah, that was the part I hated, but I didn't remember
that's the strong part
together.
To me. But yeah, it's that episode is a trip and it's great. But there you go. Let us know your thoughts, overlyanimated.com. Leave us comments on the website. If you're listening on YouTube, leave us comments there, or potentially give us an iTunes review about what you thought. We'd love topics for more Rick and Morty off-season discussions. It's going to be probably even a year longer than now, so we have a lot of time. We won't be weekly or anything, but we can do some more Rick and Morty podcasts. I'm struggling with topics to do, so email us podcast@overlyanimated.com if you have things you think we should talk about. It could just be top 5 lists. It could be deeper dive, serious discussions on different things. Check out our main feed for all of our podcasts. We have a Rick and Morty Discord channel at overlyanimated.com/Discord. Just one channel among our larger Overly Animated Discord. You can come talk about Rick and Morty there and consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/overlyanimated. Thank you very much to all of our current patrons, especially our patron of the podcast, Otaku Guy 01. And thanks as always to our patron executive producers, John, Ryan, Steve, Alex, Andy, and Hugh. Anyone, final thoughts on these stingers here?
Do we have a post-credit scene? Or are we gonna do a little skit after the
that's
outro
a
music?
good. Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, well, we'll play the music now. Bye. Okay, okay? Say bye. Bye. End the podcast.
Bye.
Take
Okay.
care.
Okay, what's our post-credit scene? The music's playing right now.
That's the IQ joke.
Oh yeah. Oh, so it turns. Okay, here. Oh, 1, 2, 3. Let's go. So it turns out none of you had a high IQ all along.
Well, you didn't have to tell me that. I knew that already.
But if we knew that, then who really has the high IQ
The
here?
listeners, they're telling us we're all stupid, and they have really high IQs because we didn't choose their stingers.
Here's an alternate one. Oh yeah. Oh, just got our first feedback from the podcast. None of you have high IQs. Oh.